Hi, everyone. This is Chris Wong. Many of you know me from Buy Local NJ, where I focus on local businesses and interviewing our great local businesses like Goodman's, Pastrami House, J. Michael's Jewelers. This is a little bit different since it's election season. It's a huge election on a national scale, but I think it's almost more important to actually focus on local. That's where we spend most of our tax dollars, or where our tax dollars go. So I'm excited to be here with Sai Bhargavi Akiri, who is running for the Board of Ed. Welcome.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, it's exciting. There are several candidates. You have a great background. Could you talk about how you or when you came to Berkeley Heights and what appealed to you?
Yeah, so I've been in Berkeley Heights for about 8 years. We moved here in September 2012. We were in the area of Summit, Springfield prior to moving to Berkeley Heights. I left India around 2004. I was an international transferee. I went to Europe. I was there for a couple of years. Then my job transferred me to New York City. And then me and my husband ended up in New Jersey, and we chose to make Berkeley Heights our home when we had our daughter. And we moved when she was about 14 months old. We liked Berkeley Heights for the fact that there were the famous Bell Labs here. We expected a diverse, vibrant small town. And we liked what we saw. It had a very quaint feeling, and it's very close to natural trails, the Watchung Reservation and such. And we liked it. So, and then the schools were a great, the busing for the schools, which we looked at compared to other towns. The busing was available for the school district, so we chose Berkeley Heights.
Oh, that's great. And I understand that you are actively involved in the community. Can you talk about what your initiatives are in the community?
So when we first moved here, I wanted to get to know and make friends and I decided the earliest thing I did was I joined a mom's soccer group to make friends, because how do you make friends like other than the playground? And then I realized I started seeing signs for volunteers for the Berkeley Heights Rescue Squad. So I graduated as a dentist back home, and I have medical training. So I went and applied. I was able to get in as an emergency medical responder, and I was on the squad for about 2 years. I also volunteer with the Happy Feet program for my daughter's school, which is William Woodruff. It's an amazing program. It focuses on running, and parents volunteer as well as teachers. And Mrs. Gasparini is amazing. She leads the whole crew. Um, so I think the rescue squad, volunteering with rescue squad, I was able to understand how small towns collaborate, because our rescue squad works along with the New Providence and the Gillette one. We basically cover for each other. And I was also able to meet a lot of our first responders, like the fire department, the police, and then understand how a key need for our community is met. Because if an ambulance is called from the county, or it's from the hospital, there's a charge to it, whereas the volunteer rescue squad, I think it's free.
Yeah, and you are a project manager at Bristol Myers Squibb, a huge company. What skills do you feel like your work can translate to being a member of the Board of Ed?
So I'm a certified project manager. I've got about 20 years of experience managing global programs all over India and UK and Europe. Uh, I mainly manage a key set of diverse stakeholders who are placed globally, and most of our projects are either ROI driven or compliance related. So I have extensive experience managing budgets, negotiating contracts, vendor management, and business case validation. So if we need to do a project, what's the core quantifiable success metric? We have goals, and working with a diverse group of stakeholders, I know how to negotiate, and different stakeholders have different needs, and you will have to collaborate and compromise on certain key deliverables. So that's what I bring to the board.
And just thinking about the Board of Ed, I mean, you are I read your priorities. It seemed like number one was really about budget. So much of our tax dollars go toward education. How will you see that those tax dollars are efficiently used and spent?
So when I first moved to Berkeley Heights, I think we bought under a certain price range. We kind of anticipated the taxes to go up in New Jersey. But when I started seeing that my taxes were going up from 8,000, they were almost like there was a 50% hike. I wanted to understand how a small town or how the local administrations run, how are my property taxes being taken into account. And I realized that out of our property tax bill, after the first chunk goes to the county, the remaining goes to the school board and to the town council. And I started tracking it about 6 years ago. And as of now, I think we spend about 56% of every property tax bill to the schools. And since the time I've started tracking it, our cost per child has gone up from $13,000 to $21,000 a kid. And I started thinking, because I grew up in India, I went to a school in India, and I was thinking, like, are we getting the bang for our buck? If we are spending $21,000 per child, are we spending, and are we being accountable in how we spend it? And with the tax increases going up, that's where, and especially this year due to the COVID and the pandemic, I think every parent's focus is on, are we getting a quality education? And I think we can do better. We're doing a great job. We have a great school district, but we can definitely strive to do better. And I want to keep us accountable. There are a lot of things that we can do without a hit to the budget. Like, we can tie up with free tools that are available, which other school districts are doing. Like, we can tie up with Khan Academy, for example, and use it as one of our curriculum tools.
And how do you feel about community engagement? I mean, before COVID, I hadn't attended a Board of Ed meeting, and now I've attended several via Zoom. Just what's your perspective in terms of communication and uh, dealing with the community?
So because of my personal interest, started attending the town council meetings about 6 to 7 years ago, and then the Board of Ed about 5 to 6 years ago. And I feel that a lot of key stakeholders are unable to get engaged with our school board, because the meetings are bi-weekly. They are at 7:30 p.m. They're held at CMS. A lot of working parents can't attend, and they go on for a long time. And they weren't live streamed previously. I think they voted late last year to start live streaming them. So I feel that every resident should be able to communicate and give their inputs. And I think we can do a better job at community engagement and outreach with residents, not just the parents. And especially with parents, now that with this whole pandemic and switching over to the remote as well as the hybrid model, I think people are able to get engaged via Zoom calls. But prior to that, I think they couldn't come in to these late meetings due to different commitments, or their work schedule, and give their valuable input. So I think we are moving in the right direction, though, now that with the Zoom, and they have decided to live stream. So I think we'll have a better engagement. But I also feel that because a major chunk of our property taxes goes to the Board of Ed, I think we can do a better outreach of reaching out or sending out some sort of a communication every quarter, or once every bi-monthly, or stating that, hey, for this quarter, this is the amount of tax dollars we've received from the town, this is what we intend to spend on, or these are our key programs. While I think late last year, I realized that we were going to have a referendum for our school board. So this year, not many people were aware that we were going to have a referendum for our Board of Ed. So we were going to have two elections in Berkeley Heights. One was the national, which is scheduled for next week, November 3rd. And there was also going to be a school board election on September 29th, which was a referendum asking for $5 million to update the GL and a couple of other media centers. And I asked them early on, when they decided that they were going to do a special school board election, I said, why don't we put that referendum question on the November 3rd ballot? Like, everybody's received their ballots. If you flip it around, there are these referendum questions. By putting a referendum question on the November 3rd ballot, it doesn't cost the taxpayers in the town any money. There's no impact. And also, because this being a presidential year, we would have had more people answering that question. But when I asked that question to the school board of ed, I was told that there was a survey. We got a great response, and we were going to have a special election in September. And then I think early spring, or due to COVID, when the state switched to vote by mail, our board decided to postpone it to next year. And I honestly hope that we do it on the November 3rd next year also. That way we'd have more engagement instead of a special election, which will also not have a tax dollar impact to the residents.
Yeah, and you talked a little bit about impactful policies. The last time you and I spoke, we were just talking about our daughters and their experience going through the remote learning during the spring, and they seemed very different in terms of how they were taught and what they went through. And that was just within our own town. How do
Yes.
you see that? How can these standards be more standardized?
So that's something that has been, I've heard about it with other parents, because I have my daughter's in fourth grade right now at William Woodruff, but she has friends who are at Hughes. Some of them are at Mountain Park. So my concern is, are we basically? I know we are one school district. We are all bound by certain policies, but are all the kids learning? Is there uniform instruction happening across the elementary schools? I think this was a concern, because we would hear, like, our school is doing this, at third grade, have you guys caught up? What are you guys doing? This was like a moms, like parents talking to each other. But it came out to be very obvious and clear when we had to switch to the remote learning early 2020. That's when I realized that our school, like, my daughter's third grade, had a certain way, or, a standard operating procedure in William Woodruff, where the teachers would start the Zoom early on. There would be attendance, there would be a pep talk on what we plan to do, and then the teachers would stay logged in all day. Versus, I was hearing that wasn't the case in Hughes, that wasn't the case in Mountain Park. And the kind of messaging we were getting in terms of how this whole virtual mode is being conducted. So that's when I felt that I think we need to evaluate and look at, to make sure that all elementary schools, or there's uniformity in instruction across the board, in all schools.
And I mean, teachers that my daughter has had, they're all excellent, and we do love all the staff at our schools. How do you see your role as working with teachers?
So I think we have a very critical role to play as parents and key stakeholders in understanding how how the teaching plan works. And I think last year there was a huge concern with the whole negotiations between the teachers and the teachers union and the board of ed, and parents were kind of not very clear on what was happening. As well as I am very involved with with the teachers that are teaching my daughter at her school. We have regular meetings and stuff, but I think we need to have a better mode of communication and understanding what our teachers needs to make their their teaching plans more accessible, or more, how should I say, like they can execute it better and seamlessly. How can we work as partners?
Yeah. Thanks so much, Sai, for sharing your priorities and your thoughts about joining the Board of Education. When I read the different mission statements on Patch from the different candidates, I liked how you really laid out specific priorities. I think not everyone does that. I think that's really a key. Uh, I think that's a really important issue, and people should read about all the different candidates before they vote. Where can people read a little bit more about you as a candidate?
Yeah. So when I came up with my priorities, I work as a program manager again, and I'm not a politician. It's our local school board. We are all neighbors. It takes a village to raise a child. So when I decided to run for board of ed, I wanted to have quantifiable goals, that if you elect me, if you choose to give me one vote for the two open positions, what can you evaluate me on? I do not believe in making statements like, let's make Berkeley Heights better, I wanted quantifiable statements. So if you choose to elect me, what are my priorities? So I want to make sure that our allocated budget is spent efficiently. We have a better communication and community engagement. We have impactful policies. And you can definitely go read. I have listed additional priorities on sci4boe.com. You can Google it. There's a Facebook page, and the Tap Into has a lot of, I think I've released 3 candidate statements. There's another one coming up. And then you can definitely go and look at that. Also, my biggest thing that I wanted to add last is when I was in Europe, I used to follow my brother's kid was going to a school in Europe. And they have certain models, and some of our school districts in America have started trying to emulate them. Is from our tax dollars, what happens is the local body collects the tax dollars, but then the money follows the child, not vice versa. Like the board doesn't decide how are we going to use this money to make education available, because every child learns differently. So I know it's a long way to go, but we should definitely strive to look at different opportunities available to us, different solutions on how best we can do justice to different kind, like, not just a regular child, but with a child with special needs, because every child learns differently. So that's one of my pet peeves. So let's see how it goes.
All right, thanks so much, Sai, for your time. Everyone, we are 1 week away from a big vote. Make sure you fill out your ballots, and you can drop them in the drop box in Snyder Park, or at
Mail
any
it
other
in.
different, or mail it in. Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks so much, Sai. Best of
Thank you.
luck. All
Thank you.
right, take
Thanks a lot.
care.
Yeah. Bye.